The moment my sister grabbed the microphone at my wedding reception and announced to every single guest that my boyfriend was probably just some man Catherine paid to show up, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just watched her laugh, watched the room shift uncomfortably, watched my mother drop her eyes to the floor like she always did when Georgia went too far, and I thought to myself, very quietly, very calmly, she has no idea. Because standing right beside me in full dress uniform, with 4 stars on his shoulders and a chest full of medals that represented 31 years of service to this country, was General Andrew Hass, my husband. And Georgia had just made the worst mistake of her life in front of 240 witnesses. This is not a story about shouting matches or dramatic confrontations. This is a story about what happens when a woman who has been underestimated her entire life finally stops explaining herself and lets reality do the talking instead. Stay with me, because I promise you, the ending is worth every single second. Before we go any further, if you've ever been written off by someone who was supposed to love you, please subscribe. Your support means everything to me, and it reminds me that I am not alone in this. Hit that button and stay with me until the very end. My name is Catherine. I'm 32 years old, born and raised in Houston, Texas. I work as a senior logistics coordinator for a federal contractor, a job that, ironically, is how I met Andrew, but I'll get to that. I am the younger of 2 daughters. My sister Georgia is 4 years older than me, which in our household meant 4 more years of being told she was the smart one, the beautiful one, the one who had it all figured out. My mother Leila loved both of us, I truly believe that. But she had a way of expressing that love that always seemed to have Georgia at the center of it. Georgia was the one who went to the better university. Georgia was the one who married first, a man named Bagwell, tall, handsome, an investment banker from Dallas. Georgia was the one who bought the bigger house, threw the bigger parties, wore the bigger jewelry. And for most of my life, I accepted that this was just how things were. I was the quiet one, the one who stayed in Houston when Georgia moved to Austin. The one who didn't get married at 26 in a vineyard ceremony with 150 guests. The one who showed up to family dinners alone year after year while my mother asked, just loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Catherine, are you still not seeing anyone serious, Aaron?" I had dated. I had loved. I had been hurt, more than once, in ways I will not detail here because this story is not about my grief, it is about my grace. But then, in the spring of 2021, I met Andrew. His full name is Andrew Tate Hass, and no, not that Tate, this man is something else entirely. He came into my professional world first, a logistics review for a federal infrastructure project. I was the contractor rep, he was the senior point of contact on the government side. I didn't know his rank at first, I knew him as Andrew. Quiet, precise, a little intimidating, but not in an arrogant way, in the way that a person who has seen real things carries themselves with a kind of stillness that most people never develop. He was 54, I was 30. And yes, before Georgia brought it up at every opportunity, I know the age gap, I knew it then. I chose him anyway. We dated privately for 8 months before I told anyone in my family. Not because I was ashamed, but because I had learned, through years of Georgia's commentary, that the moment I introduced something I loved into that family circle, it became subject to review, to ridicule, to quiet dismissal. My best friend Ruby knew, my colleague Sam knew, and my therapist Sax knew, because she was the one who helped me understand why I had spent so long letting other people define what I deserved. When I finally told my mother about Andrew, she asked 3 questions in this order. How old is he? What does he do? Does he have children? I said he was retired military. I said he had 2 adult sons. I said he was the most honorable man I had ever met. She nodded slowly. In that way she had, and said, "Well, let's see. AI." When I told Georgia, she laughed. Not at the information, not at something funny, just laughed. The way you laugh at something small. I know some of you know exactly what that laugh feels like. It's not loud, it's not cruel on the surface, it's just dismissive. Like you don't even warrant a real reaction. If this is resonating with you, please subscribe and stay with me. Your support is what makes me brave enough to keep telling this story. It means the world. Andrew proposed in January of 2023. He did it at home in my apartment over takeout from our favorite Thai place. No grand gesture, no audience, no performance. Just him across the table from me, setting down a ring that I later found out belonged to his grandmother and saying, "I would like to spend whatever time I have left with you, Catherine, if you'll have me." I cried for 20 minutes. He waited very patiently. We planned a small wedding, 150 guests at the Haas family estate outside of San Antonio. The guest list was made up mostly of Andrew's former colleagues, military families, government officials, and my family. I invited Georgia because she was my sister. I want to be clear about that. I did not invite her out of obligation or because anyone pressured me. I invited her because despite everything, I had spent most of my life hoping that one day she would simply see me. She RSVP'd yes, brought Bagwell, and called me 2 weeks before the ceremony to ask if the venue was very fancy, because she wanted to know what to wear. I told her it was formal, military formal. She said, "Oh, for a retirement party? R." I said, "No, Georgia, for a wedding. R." She paused. Then, right, sorry, I keep forgetting it's actually happening. I let it go. I had learned by then to let things go. What I did not do, and I want you to understand this was very deliberate, was tell my family the full extent of who Andrew was. They knew he was retired military. They knew he had been some kind of officer. They did not know that the man they were about to meet had commanded forces in 3 countries, had been awarded the Distinguished Service Medal 4 times, and currently served on a federal advisory board to the Secretary of Defense. Andrew thought I should tell them. I said no. Not out of revenge. I want to be clear about that too. I said no because I was tired of the people I loved being respected only after they had proven their value to someone who had never deserved that proof in the first place. Let them meet him. Let them form their own conclusions. And Georgia? Georgia would say whatever Georgia was going to say. She always did. March 11th, 2023. San Antonio was cool and clear, the kind of morning that makes you believe the day was made specifically for you. The estate was extraordinary. Andrew's family had held land there for 4 generations, and the military families who attended arrived in dress uniforms that turned the outdoor ceremony into something that looked almost cinematic. My father, Johnson, walked me down the aisle. He was quiet the whole time, which for him was emotional. He squeezed my hand twice. I squeezed back. The ceremony itself was conducted by a retired chaplain named Benson, who had known Andrew for 20 years, and who managed to make everyone laugh 3 times and cry twice in the space of 20 minutes. When Andrew took my hand and looked at me, I thought, this is what I waited for, this specific moment. We were pronounced married. 240 people stood up. I did not look for Georgia in the crowd. I was busy being happy. The reception was held in the main hall of the estate. A military band played. The food was extraordinary. Andrew's sons, David and Peter, both in their late 20s, both warm and funny and genuinely welcoming, made the most thoughtful toast I have ever heard. And then? About an hour into the reception, when glasses had been refilled and the room was loose and bright with noise, Georgia stood up. She had not been given the microphone. She took it. I saw it happen from across the room. I saw Bagwell put his hand on her arm, saw her shrug it off, saw Ruby across the table go very still, saw Sam lean over to the man next to him and say something I couldn't hear. Georgia tapped the microphone. The room quieted. She smiled the way she always smiled, wide, confident, the kind of smile that had always meant she was about to say something that would require me to hold very still and breathe through. I just want to say a few words about my little sister, she started. Catherine has always been the quiet one in our family, the one who took her time, the one who, bless her heart, never really seemed to find her footing the way the rest of us did. Polite, uncertain laughter from the few guests who knew her. So when she told us she had met someone, some military man, We were all a little, she paused, tilted her head. Well, surprised, and honestly, some of us weren't entirely sure this wasn't one of those situations where a woman gets so lonely, she pays someone to. Our woman gets so lonely, she pays someone to. The room went quiet in a different way. Bagwell said, Georgia, tannest, once, low. She laughed. I'm joking. But honestly, Kathy, we're all just so relieved that you found yourself a nice man, even if none of us really knew much about him. She raised her glass, to Catherine, and to her, General whoever. She laughed again. Nobody really joined her. And then from directly behind her, a voice. General Andrew Hass, 4 stars, dress uniform, every decoration he had earned in 3 decades of service, stood up from his chair. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. General Andrew Tate Hass, he said clearly, calmly to the room, United States Army 4-star, and the proudest man in this room tonight. He lifted his glass toward me. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then 240 people stood up. Georgia sat down. I am going to be honest with you about what followed, because this is not a fantasy, and I am not interested in exaggerating for effect. Georgia did not apologize that night. She and Bagwell left the reception early. My mother found me later near the end of the evening and held my hands and said, very quietly, I didn't know, Catherine. I should have asked more. I should have listened better. She was crying. I hugged her. Georgia called me 6 days after the wedding. Not to apologize, not at first, to explain, to tell me that she hadn't meant it the way it sounded, that I had always been sensitive, that if I had just told people who Andrew was, none of this would have happened. I let her finish. I had practiced what I wanted to say with Andrew and with Sax and with Ruby, and when Georgia was done speaking, I said this. Georgia, I have spent 32 years trying to be someone you could respect. And the night I got married, you stood up in front of my husband's colleagues and his family, and 200 people I love, and you told them I was probably paying someone to pretend to care about me. I'm not angry, but I am done. A.M. She said, done with what? Tear. Trying, I said. And I hung up. Lamon, Andrew's chief of staff and one of his oldest friends, told me afterward that half the room had recognized Andrew's rank immediately and had been horrified by what Georgia said long before Andrew stood up. Several of the senior officers present had quietly ensured that the moment was documented in the way that only people with long institutional memories know how to document things. Georgia's husband Bagwell works in financial services. His firm has federal contracts. I am not going to say more than that. I will say that in the months that followed, certain doors that had been open became significantly less open. I do not take credit for that. I did not make a single call, send a single email, or say a single word to cause it. The system, as I once told my therapist Sax, has a memory. Andrew and I live in a quiet house in San Antonio now. He tends to his garden every Saturday morning with the same precision he used to apply to operations. I work remotely from a corner office I built out of the guest room, drinking coffee too slowly and taking too many calls. We have dinner together every single night. Ruby visits every few months and always stays too long, and we love it. Sam got promoted and sent me flowers. David and Peter came for Thanksgiving and stayed 4 days, and I have never felt more like someone's family. My mother calls every Sunday. We are rebuilding something, slowly, honestly, with more care than before. She asked me once if I was happy. I told her I was. She cried a little. I let her. Georgia and I have not spoken since that phone call. I do not know if we ever will. I have made peace with the fact that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is stop waiting for someone to finally see you. Andrew sees me. He has from the beginning. That is enough. That is everything. As you made it to the end of this story, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever been laughed at by the people who were supposed to believe in you, please subscribe. Your support means everything to me, and it reminds me I'm not alone in this. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the quietest people in the room are sometimes carrying the loudest stories. I'll see you in the next one.